But should we? Because having watched the executive in action, having spoken to a number of local MPs, having seen some of the things that go on between the matey executive and the matey cabinet, which is what it's all about, the cabinet system, is I would say we're in the grip of being run by just a few people. I don't think that's right. If we're going to get things wrong, let's get them wrong collectively. Let's get them wrong together. Let's get them wrong so we've got a consensus of being wrong. Not get them wrong where everybody is yelling and screaming and there's not much we can do about it because the power is held by just a few people. That may be one of the things that you should be asking your local council candidates. You know, one of the interesting things is that in some of my criticisms is the reaction that's come back is, well, yes, but my local councillor is very hard-working. Well, yeah, but hard-working at what? If he's got no power by being a councillor, what's the point of him being hard-working? Is he or she willing to work for change so that that hard work will mean something rather than just tearing around trying hard to look after the odd constituency member who has had something naughty happen and wants the councillor to redress it? No, let's have real heart of government. We can abandon the cabinet system and we can go back to the old committee system. And then the first reaction from somebody who'd been in government for quite a long time was, well, the committee system didn't work either. Well, no, but my response was, well, at least it didn't work with all of us involved, as opposed to not working with just some of us involved. So perhaps it's the democratic principle that needs to be restored so that we're quite sure that when things get cocked up, as they have been badly at Lewes District Council and the executive side, is that we all feel, well, we could have done something about it. You know, and we could have done something about it because our local councillor was involved. I mean, it was just, if it wasn't so tragic, it would have been funny. But at the last council meeting of the year, which I went to last Monday, a week ago Monday, the cabinet just pulled the string and everybody stood up and voted. So you got some independents, and I'm going to name them again because I was really very pleased with the bravery they showed in trying hard to make a point. Is Mr. Stephen Caitlin and Ruth O'Keefe, both of whom I suppose, I've never had any row with Mr. Caitlin, I suppose, Stephen Caitlin, and I've not really had a row with Ruth, although once in a while I haven't really been terribly happy with some of the stances that she's taken. But the two of them, in their own particular way, had a real go at the council and said, the cabinet isn't telling us anything, so how... If we don't know, how can we possibly tell our electorate? How can we tell our voters? How can we people that we represent? And he's absolutely right. But when it came to the vote, whoa, pull the string, up they sat, defeated. No attempt whatsoever to debate or to think, has somebody got a point here? It's disastrous. Believe me, it's a complete and utter disaster. I have never seen anything so comical, farcical, and yet so seriously wrong in all my life. I went away absolutely appalled. It took me a little while to understand what was going on. But once I did, I couldn't believe that I was sitting in the midst of something in a democratic society where they were all patting one another on the back for what? Producing a system, an executive that is completely and utterly bloody useless, that get it all wrong. And here they were, congratulating each other on such a wonderful job when in fact the job is lousy. And if that's what the cabinet system does, let's toss it out, bag and baggage. The other thing is now that we've merged with Eastbourne, which in many ways has been absolute disaster, they're talking about possibly enlarging it to, what is it called, a tertiary authority, let's get bigger. Well, any time that the siren call is that saves us money, first of all, hadn't noticed that the council tax hasn't gone up this year, that saves us money, is farcical because the studies have shown expansion, bigger, does not produce savings. And I'm not a bit surprised. you know, I had something to do with a very large transportation company. I'm not going to mention them in the same breath as what I'm about to say, but each manager had a budget, and there was always a scramble towards the end of the year to spend the budget and then overspend slightly, because if they underspent, that's what the budget would be for next year. If they overspend, they could increase the budget. And I'm quite sure that in many ways councils do the same thing. My golly, if we save any money, we're not going to get the argument why we should either raise the council tax or go cap in hand to the government. Sad, really. That's the way it works. That's the way it shouldn't work. So ask your candidate how they feel about cabinet governance, how they feel about the relationship between the executive and the politician. I'm not suggesting that they should be hostile. On the contrary. But I was talking to a former councillor yesterday, a former politician, and he said, there was a man called John Crawford, who is the CEO of Lewes District Council, and he ran a very, very efficient executive. It was a golden era for Lewes under his stewardship. And he was right, I remember very well, John Crawford. He a very, very sound, capable, thinking man. Okay, those are the questions I would be asking. Never mind about whether they're going to pick up my bin twice a week or once a month or whatever. I think it's got to start at the top and filter down, not start with trivia and try to filter up. Never works. Oh, dear. It's we've been on there 21 minutes now, and it's 25 past. I think we better listen to a bit of music again and get ourselves... let's see, a new beginning, I think, from Ben Sound. I'll tell you about the Ben Sound people after the record. Well, there you go. A nice, that was a new beginning. It was a nice piece of music. It's from Ben Sound. One of the things that we get our music free from Ben Sound, and much of it has not been heard elsewhere. Well, I mean, it's used all over the place, don't misunderstand, because the Ben Sound stuff is very good, but it's not the sort of thing that you would hear on radio and television necessarily. But the Ben Sound people have a whole library of really good stuff which they have either devised themselves or with their friends or whatever, and they make it free to people such as ourselves who aren't showing any profit. Non-profit. It was never meant to mean a company not making any money, but it does mean it with us, is a non-profit. But they allow us to use their music for free as long as we actually mention where we got it. So Ben Sound, Ben Sound, Ben Sound, and if you need music for any reason, tap in. And whether you're buying it commercially or whether you're actually using it for your own purposes, it's good stuff. And there's a good range. I only use a very limited amount of it on this programme. But I'm a great fan of Ben Sound, and I think you will be too if you tap in and take a listen. That's Ben Sound. And that was A New Beginning. A new beginning? Well, the pound is up. I have got to be the unluckiest guy in the world, right? The pound and the euro have been belting along more or less at about 1.1, 1.2. I'm about to be paid in a bill in euros, and of course suddenly the pound has gone streaking up. So I'm going to lose all sorts of money on foreign exchange. It can only happen to me. I don't know what it is. I don't know. If I look at the heavens, I think God says, I'm going to teach him another lesson today. So, oh dear. Anyway, the pound is up as Brexit approaches. What that tells us, I have no idea, except that generally speaking is the pound is of course a currency, a commodity, and is traded. And that actually quite often determines its value. That is the confidence in the market, in the currency. But if in fact it's reflecting confidence in the market, then indeed, as Brexit approaches, it looks as if the doomsayers about business went that correct in their predictions. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens to it. There's a Labour politician. I don't know. It could have been a Conservative one. I mean, because they're all as daft as one another now. But here was his statement, right? Accept a withdrawal agreement on Brexit, or remain. Now, accept a withdrawal agreement is remain. Or remain is remain. So his choice was either remain or remain. Now, I can't imagine that any Brexiteer is going to accept that sort of a proposal to vote on. But I mean, it just shows. I keep on thinking of the movie The Madness of King George, but it's affected our House of Commons badly. I mean, they're all as daft as one another, but there's a typical example of it. Tony Blair on Tom Watson, the deputy to Jeremy Corbyn, and probably further left than his boss, and who has savoured from time to time the idea of us replicating a communist state here. Tony Blair says, Tom, he's showing great leadership. That's from Tony Blair. I mean, Tony understands very well what leadership is all about, and that's feathering his own nest, is lobbying people to give him all these fancy jobs for the EU and for the United Nations and so on, and trot around the world, and they all fall for it. And he's saying Watson is showing great leadership. How? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm choking with mirth. Oh, dear. Now, just to give you an example, it's not just Tony Blair. Oh, my goodness me, look, we're running out of time. Is MPs for who voted or have mooted that we should raise the smoking age to 21 are the same group of MPs that have voted for lowering the voting age to 16. I mean, you really couldn't make it up, could you? They just haven't got a clue what it's all about. And finally,